Hi guys, I get asked a lot how to color or recolor antlers, whether they're just bleached out or sheds that didn't get picked up until they were white or even worse. So I thought I'd make a video on how I color antlers. This is a set of sheds that a guy wants mounted on this pinchback reproduction skull. But you can see they're bleached on the inside anyway. And they're just a little, one's darker than the other one. So I'm going to color them so that they match, and then I'm going to mount them on there. I won't show mounting them on that skull in this video. So I'm going to set these horns aside, and I'm going to show you what you're going to need as far as materials. And it's really not a lot. This is just the way I do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'll just lay some of this stuff out here. Acrylic. So these are the basics of what you're going to need, and I'll just go through them, starting with the things you're going to use first. First, you're going to use a sandable sealer. It's clear and it goes on and it just seals the pores of the antler so that they don't absorb too much color. If you've ever tried to just put stain of any kind, wood stain or whatever, on a white antler, it soaks in and it just looks like crap. It doesn't look natural at all. So the key is you have to seal that antler with a sandable sealer so that the color doesn't go into the bone. It just kind of stays on top. So that is the first thing you'll do, is you're going to paint that on. And then we're going to use oil paints. These are just artist oil paints. You can get them at any art supply store or Michael's or anywhere, anything like that. And the colors that we're going to use are raw umber and burnt umber. And you can use some other colors. You can, using oil paints, you can get a crazy range of colors on your antlers, and also depth, because you can get kind of darker spots here and lighter here, and it's just a great way to color antlers back. So it's just artist oils in a tube, and it's raw umber and burnt umber. And then we're going to use lacquer thinner to thin this down so that it kind of forms a wash on the antler. And then as the lacquer thinner evaporates, we'll go back with the steel wool, a really coarse steel wool, and we'll take the color off of the high spots. And that'll give you that depth of color that looks natural. And then when we're completely finished, you're going to want to seal that with a clear matte acrylic. And that's going to seal so that it dries pretty good. But if you were to really rub on that antler without sealing it, you might get some of that color off, either on you or take it off and notice it. So, clear acrylic. So I'm going to set this stuff aside that I don't need right now, and I'm going to apply the sandable sealer, because that takes just a few minutes to dry. You're going to want to probably have gloves on. It gets pretty messy here, or don't. Either way. So we're going to take this. You just take a paintbrush, and then we just apply it on there. And you want to make sure it's coated pretty good. This stuff is glossy, but when we apply the oil paint and then the clear acrylic and do the steel wooling that we're going to, it won't be near as shiny as maybe what it looks. And so you really want to put it everywhere on the whole antler, even the places you might not be going over with color. A lot of times around the burr, it's not really bleached out so bad, so you don't need to add a ton of color there, unless it was maybe in the open and it bleached out really bad right there. So we're just going to go like this and go over that whole antler. So I'm going to pause this so you don't have to watch me do that, and then I'll restart when I get those colored and they're ready to go. Alright, so I put the sandable sealer on there and it's mostly dry. I've seen some people that do this, they'll steel wool that sandable sealer when it's dry, but I don't. I don't know if it's really necessary. I'm pretty impatient. I want to get the color on and see what they're going to look like, so a lot of times I'm rushing. So I just take a paper plate, because this lacquer thinner will eat styrofoam, and I just put a glob of each color that I'm going to use. We're mostly going to use the burnt umber. It's more red colored. The raw umber is kind of black. And so you can make it kind of a chocolatey colored by adding just a little more of the raw umber, or you can make it more red depending on the color of the elk's antlers, maybe where you picked up those sheds or whatever. So I just put some lacquer thinner in the bottom, and then I just take my brush like this, and I'll just take a dab of the red and kind of break it down in that stuff, and then add just a touch of the darker color and kind of make this wash. And I load up my brush and then I shake it off. I'll start over here where you can see this better. And then you just start painting it on. And if you don't like the color, you can add a little more of either that you think you need. I think I need a little more black. And then you're just going to paint this on. If you get it too runny, it won't. You'll see that the lacquer thinner will kind of wipe the color away before it even has a chance to dry. So it doesn't matter if it looks really thick. Don't worry about that, because when we hit it with the steel wool, it's gonna knock all that down. And you really can't mess up. You could get maybe too dark if you kept going over it over and over, but with the steel wool and then the lacquer thinner, you could even go over it with just lacquer thinner on a brush, and you could take off a lot of that color if you have too much in any one spot. And I don't want to make these too dark. They weren't really bleached out all that bad, but it was enough that they're going to look better if we throw a little color on them. And also because that one had less color on it than the other one. These actually are not sheds off the same bull. The guy found this one with this crazy extra beam, and he never found the other side, but he wanted to do something with it. And so I put him in touch with a friend of mine that's a antler buyer, and I said, you might check with Nathan. He might have something that might match or be the same size. So when he got a hold of Nathan had one that was actually pretty similar bull, not from the same area at all, but pretty similar. So they're gonna look all right on that skull. You just kind of work your way along. I'm going maybe a little faster than I would normally, just for the sake of videoing. See there, I went way too dark, but you can see I can take it right back by just hitting it with only lacquer thinner. Your lacquer thinner will evaporate on your plate, so you kind of got to keep adding to it. The nice thing about the oil paint is you can layer it. It's not a one and done thing. It can be if you're happy with the color that you end up on the first time. But it doesn't have to be. You can layer it and match the color how you want it. So you just keep on painting it on. I'm almost done with this one. And it dries pretty fast. About the time I get this side done, I'll be able to go and steel wool that other side and see what we have for color. Make sure you don't miss any spots. Okay, so that one is done. That one is done. That one looks a little blacker than this one, so I'll go and hit this one just a little bit more with the same. The problem with it is your mix down here keeps changing as you add and take away paint. But like I said, I can go back, and if it doesn't match close enough for my taste, then I can go back and darken it or lighten it or whatever I need to do. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. Set that aside. And then this is mostly dried. You can go back first with a rag and kind of wipe off the excess before you hit it with the steel wool. So that doesn't look like much. I don't know how much you can see that. But where it really comes alive is where I come back and hit it with steel wool. You just kind of got to start doing it and see how aggressive you need to be. If you take off too much, then you might not want to rub so hard. You can hit the tips more if you really like white tips, or not so much if you just want them to be not so bright. Anything that's shiny, like there's kind of a puddle of that sandable sealer, I'll hit that. I'll hit that good with my steel wool to knock the shine down. I don't really like shiny antlers. They end up kind of shiny no matter what you do because you're working them with the steel wool, and so you're kind of polishing them, which makes them a little bit shinier than maybe what they would be naturally. That's about as far as I'll take that one for now anyway. And then I'll hit that other one and see how close they are. So I'll wipe it down to make sure I don't got any puddles. And then just start into it with the steel wool. This was the side that was bleached more, so it may take a second coat to get it closer together. Using the oil paint so you can get a depth that is pretty hard to get with. People use coffee grounds and wood stain and all kinds of stuff like that, but this really is probably the most natural look that I've been able to get with, and I've tried most everything. It's actually a lot easier than people think. When they see the results, they think it must be really hard, but it's really not. You can't really mess it up. I have yet to mess up a set so bad that I had to hide them. I can already see I got to go over this one with another coat because the color's just not as thick in the low spots, and it maybe needs to be a little darker. The texture on these antlers is just a little bit different because, like I said, they're not the same bull. You won't notice it when it's mounted on that skull, but pretty close. I don't know if I'll go over it anymore. I might leave that, look at it for a little while. I like to, if I'm putting them on an artificial skull, I like to make sure I got them all colored up before I put them on the skull so I don't get anything on that white skull. This method will work on hard whites. Are the best candidate for this. By the time they get much more than that, chalky or bad splits or cracks, you have to address those cracks. This one actually has some real small surface cracks in it, but that sandable sealer will fill those, but it's when they're bigger than that it won't. And then you end up having to make some sort of a patch compound that you can rub all over the antlers to fill the cracks and voids, and then use the sandable sealer on top of that. And even then they don't come out perfect. So hard white is really where this, or really any coloring, hard whites is where it shines. You take a horn that still has all of the integrity that it had, it's just lacking the color, but no real cracks or anything, and you put the sandable sealer on it, and it's amazing how you can bring it back to where they look like they just fell off. So I'm going to come around and I'll zoom in close because I know no matter how you color an antler, it looks good from 5 or 6 feet away. But you can tell when you get up close how this looks. When we come up here, you can see that it's got highs and lows. It really looks about as close to a natural colored antler as you can get, I think. And we could add more and get more color down in those lower spots, and it would add even more. And you can go over it now with a slightly different color, and maybe don't cover the whole antler, just cover different spots of it. And anyway, that's the way that I do that. A lot of people ask every time I post a picture on social media of an antler I colored, they ask how I do it. And so I thought this would be a good candidate set to show you. Anyway, if you have any comments or questions, you can comment below. Thanks, guys.